Be Your Best You, the Passionate to Purpose podcast with David Delaney. What makes someone fearless? If I learned anything from the Princess Diaries, it is first to never go for the conventionally hot person. Second, that eyebrows really do have the power to transform your entire face. And finally, that courage is not the absence of fear, but rather the judgment that something else is more important than fear. And it's like, okay, Prince of Genovia, that's a lovely sentiment, but can you say easier said than done? I believe that taking risks and trying new things is objectively more important than my petty anxieties, but that doesn't mean they stop existing. So making that judgment means nothing if you don't have the strength to act on it. So, this quick podcast this morning, how can we be more like the seemingly fearless doers of this world, the bold entrepreneurs, the people who obviously have doubts and anxieties but seem unfettered by them, and people who take risks that lead to both massive failures and massive successes, the people who allow themselves to experience the fear and then take a deep breath and do it anyway. And just to note, I have two guests with me here in the podcast room this morning, Poppy and Matilda, my two little doggies, who are currently under my feet and making noise. So that's what it is, if you are wondering. Anyway, few points here about making you fearless. Number one, coming to terms with your weaknesses. This advice makes me immediately think of the Dali quote, Salvador Dali. Have no fear of perfection because you'll never reach it. At the root of being fearless is a strong self-awareness and an understanding that you'll have flaws, you will make mistakes, and you will fail. The idea that an overblown self-confidence is going to render you fearless is a misconception. Self-delusion is not going to protect you from discouragement, depression, or anxiety, and we become fearless only when we accept our own weaknesses, and as a result, we then learn to deal calmly with stressful situations. We become fearless because we're willing to give the pretension of invulnerability, while at the same time we're committed to remaining effective and alert. So in a way, what I'm saying here is that embracing vulnerability can make you powerful. It's important to acknowledge the type of vulnerability, but we'll talk about that again. Number two, being realistic with your goals, but still optimistic. And that's a tough balance, because individuals who hold unrealistic expectations are those who prove the most susceptible to the feelings of helplessness. I'm tongue-tied this morning. Helplessness and fear. One of the key aspects of becoming fearless is learning to be realistic without falling prey to cynicism and disillusionment. And you have to learn to view reality as it is, but also maintain your ability to view the positive in each negative situation. Fearless people are always able to see the hopeful signs, even when everything else seems to be falling apart. And this is about learning to be realistic. And learning to be realistic, I am really tongue-tied, sorry, it's a new year, I'm excited. So learning to be realistic will help you stay calm and fully operational in crisis situations and reinforce your self-confidence. Point number three is about cultivating balance in all areas of your life. Fear is a natural human response to threatening situations. My goodness. I'm sure you've heard that fear I'm sure you've heard of fight or flight. And that's about fear warning you of your body, and it goes into a state. It warns you of approaching danger, or potentially saving you from things like a career disaster. But it's all about balance here. And you can dramatically reduce negative emotional reactions if you've cultivated balance in all areas of your life. And I mean here balance, for example, between professional and private life, between your short-term and long-term goals. And this is the balance that makes you strong and self-confident, because you're not just dependent on just one thing. And this kind of balance removes from your mind the compulsion to win all the time. And who here doesn't like winning? But we don't have to win all the time, because it's about the vulnerability of losing. For example, we spoke about vulnerability and accepting that we can't win all the time. So a balanced life is probably the greatest contributor to a fearless personality. Point number four, reprogramming your inner voice. There's a guy called Dr. Robert Maurer, and he wrote a book called Mastering Fear. And he says that at the root of fearlessness is the pattern of conversations that we have with ourselves. People tend either to have a nurturing or a harsh inner voice. And during times of adversity, successful people have a voice that reminds them that it's okay to make mistakes, be afraid, or to ask for help. But on the other hand, he says that people who are afraid of risk will often confess that they're afraid of the emotional beating they will give to themselves if their efforts fail. So if your inner voice is your harshest critic, don't despair. It can be reprogrammed. Identify what you say to yourself when facing setbacks. Think about the conversation that you're having. Is it the same one that you'd have if you were supporting someone or comforting a colleague or a friend? And if it isn't, journal here. If it isn't, write out what you'd say to someone else facing the challenges that you're facing. And read those thoughts aloud a couple of times a day in the time frame that you're doing this in a comforting, affirming voice. And over time, this will actually train your inner voice to be less of an asshole. Leading on to why we should, point number 5, seeking out mentors. Why should we seek out mentors? One of the worst responses to fear is letting it fester internally, bouncing around between you and your asshole inner voice. So in order to understand your fears and to turn them into excitement or positive action, you're going to need to consult someone you trust. So seek out a mentor, a teacher, a colleague, anybody, to discuss fears and to brainstorm strategies for the situation. Now, this can be hard for people, example, moving up the career ladder, because much of our success here becomes, it's from competition. But being able to compete against each other and outshine other applicants, it is essential to a point. But the next set of skills, equally crucial, is the ability to ask for help, seek support, and collaborate. So ultimately, both skills are essential, competing and collaborating. Sharing fears or insecurities doesn't make you weak, and you'll learn that other people actually can share a lot of your fears, and ultimately it'll empower you to press on. So that, my friends, is just some thoughts on about what makes somebody fearless. And if you've enjoyed the points that I make, or have some comments or contributions you'd like to make, do pop me an email. It's David, David, at beyourbestYou.ie, and have a look on the website there. There's some free resources to root around. And until next time, friends, thank you and have a good day. And that's it for another week. Thanks for joining us this morning, and do join us next time on Be Your Best You. Have a good week.